Have you ever heard of a life-changing bathroom break? Let me tell you the story about a man from Jingdou named Peng Haoxu and how one pit stop turned into the wildest adventure of his life. One evening, Peng was riding home after a night out with the lads. Lots of food was eaten and lots of drink was drunk. Perhaps too much drink was drunk. Well, if you've ever been out on the town, drinking all night, you'll know that sometimes nature calls, and sometimes nature yells. That evening, nature yelled. Peng jumped off his horse to find a quiet spot to answer the call. Well, whilst Peng was doing the deed, his horse, evidently being a gentleman, gave him some privacy and wandered off to snack on some grass. There in the grass was a little clump of yellow, sweet-smelling flowers. The horse, not heeding warnings about eating yellow snow, or in this case flowers, decided to eat them. After doing his business, Peng came back to see the horse eating the strange flowers. They looked almost magical in the fading sunlight. But his horse had already eaten most of them. Curious, Peng, also not heeding the wisdom of not enjoying yellow things found on the ground, picked them up and gave them a sniff. Fortunately, they smelt amazing, so he decided to keep them and stuffed them into his pockets. Peng hopped back onto his horse, and since he was having such a good night, thought, you know what, let's not go home yet. He let the horse run wherever it wanted, just enjoying the wind on his face. But after a while, the sun had gone down, and he was starting to hear the siren song of his bedroom, and thought it might be about time to head home. Well, that's when he realized he had no clue where he was. He was lost in some wild, overgrown mountains. While he was looking around, desperately trying to find anything that looked even remotely familiar, a man in green clothes appeared out of nowhere. The green-robed man calmly grabbed the reins of Peng's horse and said, "It's getting dark. My master invites you to spend the night at his place." Feeling overwhelmed by his situation, Peng stumbled out a confused, where am I? The man answered, Oh, Nanzhong. Nanzhong? Peng was confused. There was nowhere called Nanzhong near where he lived. Yes, the green-robed man clarified. Nanzhong in Sichuan. Peng's jaw dropped. Sichuan? That was over 1,000 miles away. His horse really did take him for a ride. Wait. Peng, suddenly remembering stranger danger, asked, "Who is your master? Does he know me?" "You'll see," said the man. And Peng, suddenly forgetting stranger danger, followed the man. Eventually, they reached a huge estate built halfway up a mountain. It looked grand. Beautiful buildings were stacked like a palace. A crowd of people were standing outside. They were waiting for someone. Peng got off his horse and bowed. Then, like clockwork, the host walked out. He looked powerful, almost unreal. Peng suddenly felt underdressed next to the mysterious host. The host looked around and said, "Amongst all my guests tonight, none came from further away than Mr. Peng." Peng was invited to enter first, but trying to be polite, refused. The host, either not hearing or not caring, grabbed Peng's arm anyway. The host's grip was so tight, Peng felt like his bones were being crushed. He swore he heard something pop. Peng, fearing for his life, or at least his arm, gave up and followed the host in. Anyone else who hesitated was shown similar hospitality. They all walked in, nursing their arms. Inside was a dazzling hall with expensive decorations. 2 people sat at each table. Peng leaned over and whispered to his seatmate, "Who is our mysterious host anyway?" "He's the Marquis Huang. His surname is Zhang," the man replied. Peng froze. Marquis Huan? That was a title given to dead noblemen. Was he in the house of a ghost? Nobody dared say a word during dinner. It was eerily quiet. Then the Marquis raised a glass and said, "Every year I hold a small gathering for friends and family. Tonight we're lucky to have a special guest from very far away. Mr. Peng, I'd like to ask you for something, but only if you're willing." Peng stood up quickly. Yes? What do you want? He blurted out nervously. Your horse is no ordinary horse anymore. It has immortal bones. I want to trade it for a different horse, and I'll give you 1,000 taels of silver. Peng was stunned. Oh, you can have it. No need to trade anything. But the Marquis insisted. No. You'll get a good horse, and the silver too. Peng dropped to the floor, bowing in thanks. But the Marquis pulled him back up. More food came and drinks kept flowing. As the night ended, guests got ready to leave. The Marquis turned to Peng and asked, "Your home is quite far now. Where are you staying?" "Oh, this gentleman here has offered to let me stay at his place," Peng said. The Marquis nodded, toasted the room, and then whispered to Peng, "That herb you're carrying, if you eat it fresh, it can make you immortal. If it's dried, you can use it to create gold and silver. 7 blades of it will get you 1,000 taels of gold or silver." Then he handed Peng the instructions on how to do it. The Marquis spoke loudly, so the room had no choice but to pay attention. "Go to the market tomorrow. Pick any horse you like. Don't worry about the price. I'll handle it. And friends, let's help our faraway guest with some travel money." Everyone pitched in generously. After the banquet, the guests left with Peng. They walked for a bit, crossed a hill, and arrived at a village. The man named Wang, who had sat with Peng, brought him to the Liu family house, then finally explained what the heck had just happened. Turns out, this village had a tradition. Every year, they held a festival at the Marquis Han Temple with sacrifices and plays. Actually, one had organized the last one, which ended 3 days ago. On the afternoon the festival had ended, each household got a sudden invitation by a strange man wearing green, telling one person from each home to follow him. No reason was given. Once they got to the mountain estate, the messenger finally told them, "Marquis Huan wants to see you. One more guest is coming, from far, far away." That guest, of course, was Peng. The guests started comparing notes. Everyone who had been touched or dragged by the Marquis had nasty bruises on their arm, just like Peng. Over the next few days, the villagers helped Peng look for a horse at the market. Days passed, but Peng couldn't find a horse that looked like it would be able to make the long journey back home. Days began to turn into weeks. Peng didn't want to trouble them anymore, and resolved to just buy a second horse on the way home if he needed to. And that's when he spotted it, an amazing looking horse. He had passed this market 100 times, but had never seen it before. Peng gave it a test ride, and it was perfect. He rode back to the village ready to pay. But there was nobody there. He searched the whole market, but the seller was just gone. So Peng thanked the villagers, packed up his stuff, and rode home. The horse was so fast that he was back in Jingzhou by sundown. When he told his friends and family about what happened, well, they thought he was nuts. But then he pulled out the goods from Sichuan. That was over 1,000 miles away. Their jaws dropped. Later, he checked on the yellow flower still in his robe, now dried. 7 blades exactly. Peng followed the Marquis's instructions, and with a flash, they turned into gold and silver. Peng became rich overnight. To show his gratitude, he returned to that same village and made offerings at the Marquis Han Temple, and even paid for a 3-day opera to honor him before heading home.